Welcome to Season 3, Episode 1 of the Be Who You Want to Be podcast. My name is Kandas Rodarte, and I am your gratitude and relationship marketing coach. I'm here today with Judy Bezler. Oh, I had it right the second time. I'm here with Judy Bezler from Charlotte, North Carolina. Judy, tell us what you do.
I am a professional operations advisor. So I help businesses strengthen their operations and their benefit strategies and maximize tax credits. So all kinds of things. My background is actually in operations. I was president of a company up in the New England area. And I've taken that and brought it down to the small business market because they deserve as much assistance as large businesses. And there's just not a lot of people ready to help them.
Okay, so let's define operations. What exactly in the world of business does operations mean?
Operations means everything that keeps the company running, not the product development, not the sales, but all of the infrastructure and back office that helps a company maintain its integrity and stay in business, quite frankly. So it's all the stuff that's behind the scenes of product and sales and marketing.
Okay. So it's like the, if you are a micropreneur and you're running your own business and you've got maybe 2 employees and one of them is a sales rep and the other one stuffs boxes, then you're the chief operations manager.
Correct. Yeah, I do everything else. I can help with everything else, either myself or assist the owner in backfilling the position, setting up the structure and the processes and procedures so they can hire someone to match what the company needs. And then I help with the hiring process as well, and backfill that position after it's established. So taking some of the responsibility and the burden off of the owners.
That's perfect. Okay, so who is your ideal client, and do you just help businesses in Charlotte, or do you go beyond that?
I help businesses all over the country, and I really like working with companies that are starting up, initially usually 2 to 3 employees, up to about 100 employees. After that, they have hopefully established an internal structure that's going to support the functions that I work with. But in those smaller businesses, there's a lot of hats being worn by a lot of people. And when it's all in somebody's head, it's hard to communicate and hard to make sure that all the departments and all the functions are working together. And that's where I come in.
So we're recording this in June of 2020, which is right smack in the middle of the COVID epidemic crisis, whatever you want to call it. I was watching an interview on some news channel the other day, and it was a gentleman who drives a semi-truck. He's an independent contractor, and the reporter, I wish I could remember what show it was, I don't remember, but the reporter asked him, as an entrepreneur, how has this affected you? And his answer was, I'm not an entrepreneur, I'm a micropreneur. So let's talk about that. What is, in your mind, because I have my idea of what that is, but in your mind, what's the difference between an entrepreneur and a micropreneur?
Well, I would even break it down a little, instead of micropreneur, which is absolutely adorable. I love that. But I look at it as self-employed. So quite frankly, I'm self-employed. I don't have employees. So an entrepreneur, in my mind, is someone that wants to grow to the point or already has employees working for them. That's when it becomes a business other than self. When you have reports and you have to get, the business entity takes on a personality and a life of its own, independent of the one person. So my definitions are sort of that same ilk, but entrepreneurship is when you have or expect to build an actual entity, and self-employed is not a dirty word. 1099 contractor is not a dirty word, but if it's just y'all, as they say here in the South, you're self-employed. And I guess you can call it a micropreneur as well.
But being self-employed doesn't mean that you can't be an LLC or an S corp. It just
of course
means
not.
that you're a solo.
Yeah. So LLC, right? LLC, S corp, C corp. Those are entities that are structured for tax advantage. They have nothing to do with your size. There are very large companies out there that are LLCs, and they're perfectly fine as far as tax liability and all that. But when you're looking at structure, especially for an individual, I've heard over and over again, I've got to get an LLC. And my back question is, why? What is that going to do for you tax wise? And, definitely talk to your tax attorney about that. Your CPA knows some, but talk to an attorney in your state. An LLC has members, where a corporation has shareholders. You all know about that. Like, do I own IBM stock? No. Do I wish I did? Yes. But LLCs have members. So if you're an individual with an LLC, your LLC that would be exactly one member. And is there a tax advantage to you going that route? Is there a liability protection with an LLC for you? Usually, by the way, Kandas, the answer is no. Because if you're a party of one and you screw up royally, the veil of an LLC is pierced because, kind of look around, it's still you. Yeah. So the protection that folks tend to think is universal and complete with an LLC, not necessarily. So they definitely need to talk to a tax professional and a lawyer on both of those counts. Don't do it yourself and just spend the money and then find out later it was a waste.
Yeah. Well, I've never recommended an LLC. As a business coach, I have never recommended an LLC. It's S corp if you can, and talk to an attorney. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a CPA. I don't know what the right structure for your business, but I do know that S corp or corporation is going to be a much safer liability protection. So, okay, but that's just my opinion. That is an opinion.
Exactly.
Okay, that is just an opinion.
Seek professional legal counsel. Yes. Kandas and I are not attorneys. We're just telling you from experience what we've seen. Again, choosing the entity of your organization is based on taxation and liability. Nothing to do with the type of business you're in.
Correct. Okay, so the reason why I wanted to sit down with you on this and relaunch the Be Who You Want to Be podcast is because I'm very fascinated with the work that you did advising women entrepreneurs. So I want to get, because I'm a woman entrepreneur, but I always felt like my thinking pattern was more along the lines of a man. Please don't, women out there, please don't take this sexist, but I always felt that I thought more like a man than a woman. So I can't really answer the questions that I have about what women want from a business, what their vision is, what their most pressing questions are. Judy, I think you can, because you've been there, you've done that, and you've worked with them. So what is it that most women entrepreneurs are really struggling with, really want from their businesses?
Self-doubt. I'll just say that's it. Self-doubt right there. So just a little background. I have been and was a coach for female entrepreneurs for over 20 years up in New England. That's where my home is originally, and won an award for the state of New Hampshire for my work with female entrepreneurs. So I get it. And women come in two camps. They either are, in my opinion, they either think that they are bigger than they are, business-wise, and are really not there yet, think they know it all or they should know it all, and they move forward without a clear path or a clear plan, or they think too small and limit themselves. Rarely have I seen a woman business owner who's got a happy medium between those two. And I think that's the most frustrating thing that I have seen. Again, not having worked with been a coach to a lot of male businesses, although I have been to a couple of those, working with men, they just don't seem to have learned the fear that women have learned. And that's a big thing with entrepreneurship or starting any kind of business. It's scary, and it's okay to be scared. You should be. If you're not scared, you're not paying attention. Okay.
I love that you just said that men haven't learned the fear, right? But women have learned to be fearful. So how do we overcome that?
Well, a couple of things. Again, having some facts and figures always helps. So to have a strategy, to have a plan, to know that, I'm going to pick this up. My bar of soap. This is not a bar of soap. It's actually a sticky pad. My bar of soap. My aunt and my cousin and my sister Jenny love my soap. So I am going to go and sell this soap in every boutique shop in North Carolina. Okay, that's a great goal. And how are you going to get there?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is the biggest thing, that if you have a path to follow, if you have a plan to follow, it takes some of that unknown, that fear away from you. And you do that with a good coach like Kandas. You do it through the small business administration programs. You do it through women entrepreneurship centers, which usually have free programs and lots and lots and lots of resources. If you're not hooked up with them, please, please, please check locally. They are all across the country and available to you even during this COVID time. Please make sure that you get information. That doesn't mean you need to know how to do bookkeeping, marketing, accounting, everything under the sun. You need to understand how it all comes together and plan how you're going to fulfill those needs in your company. It doesn't always have to be you. Exactly. So again, that's stepping back a little bit and considering, how am I going to get my soap to where I want it to get? And it's not putting it in the back of my car and wandering around downtown. Not very effective if you really want to make a difference in your business.
Well, if you want to launch a business, you need a marketing plan. If you want a marketing plan, you got to identify your target client. If you want to identify your target client, you really got to do some research. So you can't just say, woohoo, I want to start a business and here's how I'm going to start it. It doesn't happen that way.
Well, you also need to understand what your least the least amount of money that you need from your sale. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
What is the break-even point? You can be making a lot of soap and losing a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So you need to understand your costs, including your time, the marketing time, everything that's involved with that, including any kind of accounting, bookkeeping, all of the business stuff you need to understand and learn if you don't already know it before you launch your business. And those costs are built into what you sell this for. You need to know your break-even point so you're not underselling. You need to know your competitors' price points so you can be competitive. You don't have to be the cheapest on the market. That's not always recommended. And Kandas, I'm sure you agree with that. But you need to understand what the value propositions, why people should care about your soap and buy it. And you also need to know how much of the stuff and what price points you can make a profit, because actually that's what you're in business for. And don't forget to pay yourself, for gosh sakes.
I want to go above and beyond the break-even point, because a lot of women start their businesses at home. And then when they think about their costs in terms of, well, I don't have rent, I don't have electricity, because all that comes in my house. So when you're determining your break even, you really need to make sure that break even point includes future costs like rent and equipment and electricity and employees. And if your break even doesn't cover those in the future, you're done. You're done.
It's a paid, yeah, right. It's a paid hobby.
Yeah,
at that point. Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with, there is nothing wrong with a paid hobby. There is nothing wrong with selling somebody else's product. There is nothing wrong with enjoying what you're doing. But if you are seriously trying to make a living or supplement household income, you need to be serious about the dollars and cents.
I want to go back to what you said earlier about me not recommending that you have the lowest price. I actually highly suggest that you go for the highest price point in your market because it's easier for you to make money.
Well, and I think but your product has to warrant it. I'm going to put a caveat on that.
Too. That's
and
true
say,
too.
if you're selling soap that's ground down with chicken bones and goat fat, it might be a little funky, and it might not be the premium product that's going to support that price point.
So make the best product that you can so you can get the highest price that you can. That's, put the effort into, don't chintz. If your handmade products are a dime a dozen, you can pick them up at flea markets, whatever, you can pick them up anywhere. But if you want to be in a boutique, and that boutique needs to be able to make a profit on what you're making, and because so here's another lesson that a lot of entrepreneurs don't understand. If they want to sell wholesale, the retail store wants to at least double their cost. So if they're paying $4 for something, they want to charge at least $8 for it, if not 10. And 2.5. So if your price is $5, the store would want to go 2 to 2.5. So your price is $5, they're going to sell it for $12.50, between $10 and $12.50, right? So you've got to make sure that the quality of your product warrants that $12.50 price. If you're making a $5 product and you want to sell it at $5 to the store and they can't sell it for $12.50, you're not going to sell it.
Right. And just as a point, which you probably know, I was involved with a company that had a QVC commercial in production before the company went IPO and was sold. Point being, the QVC ratio is 6-to-1. So QVC, yeah. So you want to sell a $5 it costs you to make a $5 thing. And you sell it, or less actually, because you want to make a profit. So it costs you $2, you sell it to QVC for $5, they're going to multiply, they were at the time multiplying by 6, and I can't imagine they're any less, because I think all the production costs and everything that goes into so the margins over and above what you are selling wholesale to retail or direct to consumer, you need to take those into consideration. You're absolutely right.
I did not know about QVC. I used to actually be a buyer, and I was an outdoor apparel buyer, so our margins were 50, which is 100% markup. And so I'm speaking a language that a lot of people don't understand. So when you are buying let's say you go to a store and you're buying a coat, the store probably paid half of what they're charging for the coat. So when you see that coat on sale for 60% off, they're selling it for less than they paid for it. And a lot of stores will do that because they want to liquidate their old inventory so they can bring in new inventory. So don't ever pay full price for anything.
Excellent.
Okay. All right. So what else did the women that you mentored, what were their struggles? What did they want to know? What were their biggest questions?
Wow. That's a lot, Kandas.
I know, but I'm giving you a lot to deal with.
I know.
You're on your own.
So other than believing in themselves and confidence, and I think that's the other, women need to talk to women that are going to support them who aren't family members. Because you're going to get a lot of, oh, that's great, honey. And then behind your back, I never buy that, or whatever. So you need to get some feedback from folks who don't know you that well, who aren't related to you and don't have to sit around Thanksgiving dinner table with you and won't say a bad word. So you need to get some reliable, independent, objective feedback on your ideas and on your product. The other thing that I think you need to do, besides educating yourself as much as possible, and you don't need to be a bookkeeper, you need to understand the terminology and what those components are doing in your business. You don't need to know how to do them, if that makes sense. The other thing that I've found that women come up against a lot of times is family support. And there's still, I think to this day, some concern about, oh, she's going into business. Isn't that interesting? Or isn't that sweet? Or isn't that cute? Or golly gosh, that's she's turning her hobby into a something. And being taken seriously in your family is really important, because you're going to need them during the really tough times. When things aren't looking that great, when you need some encouragement, you need to make sure that your family, especially your immediate family, is on board. Because I'll tell you what, this isn't easy. Being in business is not easy. It takes time, lots of time. And usually it's taking time away from your family and other obligations. And no matter what kind of business you're in, the hours are long, they're hard, it's frustrating. And yeah, I'm being a little negative here, but I don't want to, there's no Skittles and rainbows and unicorns. It's hard work, and it is work. And I think that's the most important thing to remember, that it cannot, starting a business, running a business, keeping a business going is not to be taken lightly, and is is a big undertaking. And a lot of women, I'm not quite sure why, because I don't understand the psychology of it, but will start, and as soon as they hit a bump in the road, they're done. It's like, oh, I thought it would be much easier than this. Or I can't handle the stress, I can't handle the pressure. So again, talking to folks who have been there, done that, have them share the war stories, not just the good things. Go on webinars. Again, the women's business centers have great speakers who come in and tell it like it is. So I think the other thing you need to do is set your expectations based in reality and not in a fairy tale. And again, I think women, again, I'm going to be very sexist. And here you go, Kandas. You wanted me to do this, so here it goes. Are waiting for the thing that's going to save them. They're waiting for the knight on the horse. They're waiting for the perfect something or other that's going to come and provide them with the magic potion to make it all happen. And there is no magic potion. And there's knight on the white knight on a horse. If you've got one, hang on to him, because you're the only one. But other than that, you are entering a world where you're going to be required to do as much as anyone else to get where you want to go in an ethical and moral and kind way. Absolutely. But you're going to need to put the work in, and it's not always pretty. And I think that's a big part where women get to that point and then back off because they're frustrated, or they just feel that the world is unfair. Whatever their issue is, they're not psychologically prepared.
I want to share my own horror story, because
Sure.
I think women need to hear them. So my husband and I launched our business when we were pregnant. And our daughter was born about 6 months after we launched the business. And I basically built my website while nursing, or stayed up until 2 a.m. and worked while she was sleeping. I mean, so my daughter's 7 years old, maybe 6, and she comes into my office. I said, this is years of this. And she says to me, "Mommy, how come you never play with me?" So you really need to be prepared for those heart-wrenching questions. My heart broke when she asked me that. And she's 21 now, so I'm still heartbroken over that question all these years later. So there's
hopefully she's over it now, though. Hopefully. Maybe.
I don't know. I don't know. The other thing is we get so caught up in our perfection that sometimes we let our perfectionism prevent us from execution. So I've always been a ready, and Judy, you experience this today, I'm a ready, fire, aim kind of person. Okay.
Yep.
Because I don't use guns. I use a bow and arrow, right? So I'm not a hunter. I just enjoy archery. So with a bow and arrow, it's not like you have a sight on your gun and you can aim at the target and you're going to get it right. With a bow and arrow, unless you're really, really good, you gotta you got to fire off a few before you've got your aim right, because you got to understand your pull, your recoil is going to be different every time you shoot, because your strength is good. I mean, you just don't have the same circumstances. A gun is a gun is a gun, but a bow depends on you, right? And if you're not feeling well or you've been working out, it's going to affect how you pull. So with archery, you have to fire before you aim. I mean, you can aim, but you got to fire, and then you can adjust your sight and fire again. So I am long about way. I'm a ready, fire, aim kind of person. Some women spend so much time trying to make it perfect that they never fire. They spend too much time aiming and never fire. So,
right.
Don't be afraid to execute. If this is something that you want to do, and you know that you have your price right, you know that you're going to cover your costs, and you know that you're going to love doing what you're doing, fire. Pull back that string and let it go. Fire.
And I think that goes back to the fear issue that it's not good enough. It's not perfect, so it's not good enough. I can't do this until it's 100% right. I'll be criticized, and all the self-talk. And there's a quote out there, and I'm not even going to get it right, so I'm not going to try. But perfection is the enemy. There is no such thing as perfection. I do some writing, and I can rewrite something 15 times, and every time I go back, I find one more thing to correct. So you could get to the point where you never publish because you're always writing better. So good enough is actually good enough. There's a reason that says good enough. And think about Microsoft. How many 1.0.2 point updates and if Microsoft waited for perfect, okay, we would still be on DOS. Mm-hmm. They never waited for perfect. They waited for good enough, and you can make incremental improvements that are impactful. But get the bloody product out the door. Be Microsoft, and don't wait because your competitors are not.
I love that. Launch and adjust as you go. Launch and adjust as you go.
Exactly. And you know what business is? Starting a business, running a business is? It's an experiment.
Exactly.
Kandas, that's all it is. It's not, unless you're a doctor or a surgeon even, it's not life and death. No babies are dying in the street. That's one I always say to my entrepreneurship clients is like, what if you get it wrong, is somebody going to die? Are you going to be, living in a box? Yeah. It's okay because you can fix it. If you make the rules, you can fix it. So give it a shot, but have good information. Make your decision to move forward based on fact, not emotion. That you have things in place, that you have guidance, professional guidance that you can turn to if something screws up, so that you're not trying to reinvent the wheel and dig yourself out of a hole by yourself. Get those support systems in place, and then definitely go for it. But perfection is an illusion, and you guys hear this all the time, but honestly, it is. And be a Microsoft. Go out and do your thing, and then adjust as the experiment calls for it, and do it smartly.
Exactly. Excellent advice. Excellent. Okay, so how do people get a hold of you if they want to hire you?
If they want to hire me, they can go to my website, why do we say that anymore? directpointadvisors.com. Or you can search for me on Facebook or on LinkedIn, and you will see different aspects of my business on those sites. Some Facebook, for example, I'm talking about benefit strategies and for businesses. On the Direct Point Advisors, I'm talking about consulting for tax credits for businesses. And in between, I'm doing the operations consulting. So there's a lot of moving parts. And again, I'm adapting to what's needed in the marketplace. I'm adapting to what my clients need and trying to anticipate future needs moving forward. So Direct Point Advisors was a name I chose, and you'll see the logo's kind of an arrow with a D. It's very funky. I love it. I had that designed for me because I wanted it to be ambiguous. what? I can change what I'm advising and have done so over the years, but the name remains the same. And so I'm always adapting and monitoring the reaction in the business at that under that umbrella.
Well, pivoting is always a good strategy when things change. And it seems to me, being in business for over 20 years now, holy crap, 22 years, things change often.
A lot.
And right now we are in a time of change. So it's a good time to launch a business if you can justify launching a business and you've got the stomach for it. Right now would be a great time.
Fortitude. We call it fortitude. Fortitude.
And it would also be a great time to pivot if you're already in business, but the market for what you sell is no longer viable. Pivot. I mean, I know a lot of people who have pivoted to like the local distilleries. In Western Michigan, everybody wants to own a distillery, right? So all these distilleries pivoted to making hand sanitizer in March. And it was brilliant because they had a product they could sell, they could keep their employees working, and it was a needed commodity, right? Because everybody and their brother has hand sanitizer now. Again, this is June of 2020, so we're in the middle of COVID-19 and all of the
And just remember, and as you're saying, the reason that here the distilleries did the same thing, but they used their existing skill set.
Exactly.
To match a need. They didn't have to reinvent themselves. They didn't have to go out and that wasn't their purpose. They wanted to take what they had and what they knew. They went back to their prime why. Why do we do this? How do we do this?
Mm-hmm.
And what can we do with it?
Mm-hmm.
And thought out of the box
mm-hmm.
using everything they had. And I think that small businesses need to do the same thing. We don't need to go do a thing or buy another business we have no experience running or selling. And it's like, why did you do that? Grandma used to say, stick to the knitting. Stick to what you do best, okay? And break that down. And it's not necessarily soap.
Yeah.
You might just be really good at chemistry, or you might be really good at fragrances, or you might be really good at making those relationship marketing connections with the boutiques. Take the skill set. If it doesn't work for this, it might work for something else. And you got to keep that in mind.
Exactly. Well, this was a lot of fun, Judy. I really appreciate the conversation. I hope we can do it again sometime.
I would appreciate that as well. And nice to be with you today, Kandas. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
This has been Kandas Rodarte. Be who you want to be. Your life, your business. you.